come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por
We
favor,
invite you, if
manténganse
you dare,
alejados de
to
las
step
puertas.
visit tonight's episode. You are with us in this elevated travel doorless chamber.
Hello and welcome to Miles from Main Street, your Far From Disney podcast. My name is Mikhailo,
And I'm Brian,
and we're here to talk about Disney World,
but especially coping away from Disney.
which we know a lot about being from the Midwest. Here at Miles from Main Street, our preferred travel agency is Magical Vacations by Kimberly. Kimberly is a Disney expert and can handle all of your Disney planning needs. She can also plan Universal and all major cruise lines. Contact Kimberly at magicalvacationsbykimberly@yahoo.com.
And find her on Facebook and Instagram under Magical Vacations by Kimberly.
So today on Miles from Main Street, we are talking about some firsts. These are firsts that we have done as Disney fans. Myself, I found it kind of difficult because I've enjoyed Disney for so long that a lot of my firsts happened a while ago. But with Disney, there's always new things to do. So I was able to pull some stuff up. And I think the things that I have to talk about are going to be pretty great. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I have some pretty awesome things here. And my thought was at first, first time that I was there, first ride I went on, but I really liked the idea of some of my first experiences, and I think that'll be a lot of fun to talk about. So I'm excited about this one.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
So why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, I'll go first. I have it's a story that I like to tell, and I think I've told it on here a couple times, but I'll kind of go in depth with it. And it's the first time that I went and saw Fantasmic. So I was in Orlando I was actually in Orlando with a marching band who was marching at a different resort that we will not name here. We talk about that resort sometimes too. It was we were marching at Universal, and if you take me to Orlando, I'm gonna find a way to get to Disney World, and I did. I have a couple friends who they were working there. They still work there, and they were able to let me in. If you don't know, when a Disney cast member lets you in, it turns into a park hopper, and they can let 3 people in per day. This is the friend that let me in. He is a pretty high up cast member, and so he's able to let people in every day. But certain cast members will have a certain number of times they can use their main gate pass. I think 12 is the usual number, 12 a year. But that's what they did. So let me in, and I was able to get a park hopper, and so we kind of park hopped around, and we ended the night out at Hollywood Studios, and we're walking around, and I saw the line for Fantasmic, and my friend was like, "Hey, have you ever seen Fantasmic?" And I was like, "No." And we had our gaps episode a little bit ago, and that was one of the gaps that I had going on at that point, was that I had never seen Fantasmic. And so we got in line, and he was just pitching it to me, and he was like, "Oh, it's super cool. It's like a nighttime show, but it's more of like a production, stuff like that." And I thought that was really cool. And so one of my friends who was working at Fantasmic at that point walked by and was like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And we started talking, and my friend was like, "Yeah, this is his first time seeing Fantasmic." And she was like, "Really?" And then she got on her walkie-talkie, and she was like, "Yeah, you guys come with me." And they took us all the way up to the front and let us in with all of the VIP people, and we were able to sit in the VIP area of Fantasmic. And I thought that was the coolest thing, because at Fantasmic they'll like push you in like sardines. Like it's basically just like a grandstand, and they're not individual seats. It's just kind of like bench seating. So people are just pushed in there. And our area was like nice and roped off, and we weren't too close to anybody really. And just watching the whole thing from that area and kind of like having that like Disney magic of like, oh, we're in VIP seating and everything that like that really made the whole thing magical. So that was one that really stood out to me as one of my favorite firsts because of that Disney magic that they gave to us. So, pro tip: if you have a cast member friend, walk around with them because they probably have other cast member friends that can hook you up.
That's an awesome experience. I've always loved Fantasmic. It's been a great show they have there, and I hope it comes back again soon. It's been a wonderful, wonderful production. And if you've never had the chance to go, the last time I was there with my kids and we saw it, we went we used a like a dinner and a show type of system that they have. So we had a late lunch at Hollywood and Vine, and then we had a ticket that was kind of like a fast pass to use at Fantasmic, so you don't have to get in line so early. They have special seating set aside for you, and it's a little more obstructed than the regular general seating. For whatever reason, they kind of stick you off to the side a little bit, but still great view, still a great time. We really really enjoyed it. So yeah, what a great experience you got to have there.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So my first experience I'm going to talk about was getting to go to dinner at California Grill. I had never been there, obviously, because it's a first. But yeah, my wife and I were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary, and we decided to go to California Grill. I was lucky enough to get a 9 o'clock reservation, which it is 9 o'clock fireworks hour at that point. So we got there an hour early and took our chances of getting a seat in the lounge. They allowed us to go up at that point, and we had barely sat down in the lounge when they came along and said, "Your table is ready." And I said, "Here I am against the window, table for two, looking over the Magic Kingdom." I'm like, "Where's the table? Because I kind of have a really nice view as it is." And they said, "Oh yeah, you'll be back in the dining room if you want to be able to see fireworks and stuff. Then I'd stay right where you are." And if you don't know, when you sit in the lounge, there and at many places, they still serve you the same as if you were sitting in the dining room. So we stayed there and had an excellent time. What was really cool is that Happily Ever After had just started. So the day before, were in the park, got to watch Happily Ever After from there. Of course, in the hub, that's where I always watch the fireworks. And it was great to watch it, see the projections, see the fireworks right from there. But then the next night, watching it from above, my wife said, "I didn't even know the fireworks were in different shapes." They do have some hearts that show up, and I don't know, some flower looking ones. And it was really neat because she was like, "I was so busy looking at the castle and worrying about projections, I didn't really get to see the fireworks." So seeing the two different viewpoints was really cool. And it was our anniversary. They have the best sushi I've ever had, which might not be saying much when I'm eating sushi in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but but it was excellent sushi, and the food was good, and of course I had my bride with me, so it's hard to complain. But it was yeah, if you guys can ever get a chance to get to California Grill and watch the fireworks, definitely do it.
Yeah, that's definitely goals. Like I am like that's like really high on my bucket list is watching fireworks from California Grill. Oh my God, that would be so cool.
Yeah, and if you ever are going to try to do something like that, like obviously we got lucky that we were able to get that perfect reservation time. I did it 180 days out. I was right there the second they went live. That was the first one I went for, and even then, we were lucky. So if you can do something like that, I highly, highly recommend doing it.
Mhm.
But if you can't, if you happen to get a reservation earlier in the day, they do let you come back up and watch the fireworks at night. So make sure you hang on to that receipt, and you can come in and say, "Hey, I had a meal here earlier. We want to go watch fireworks." They have a space for you to do that. So you can still get that experience even if you aren't eating dinner at that moment.
Very cool. Yeah. And I know that is something that I'm going to take advantage of the next time I'm able to see some fireworks. This next trip I'm going on, there will not be any fireworks, which I'm very sad about. I definitely wanted to go see Happily Ever After again, but yeah, they'll be back soon.
Happily Ever After is such a great show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that will always have a special place with us. So,
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of fireworks, my next first is actually Illuminations, and this has a special place in my heart because Brian and I are both into the marching arts, and I marched drum bugle corps for 7 years. And Illuminations, the cadets in DCI actually did a show that was all Illuminations music. And it's funny, I saw that show before I even knew that was a Disney fireworks show. So I had fallen in love with this music from DCI and this amazing drum corps, and then to go to a Disney park, which this was around, I want to say it was 2006, and this was kind of around when I had my like Disney awakening, and I like kind of realized that like I think I'm really into this stuff. Um, and I think that honestly that was kind of the nail in the coffin, was that music and those fireworks at Epcot, which is my favorite park, and just experiencing all of that and kind of the emotions that came through when I saw that show was really kind of like the moment that I was like, I think I like this stuff. And I had this on my list, which was realizing that I was a Disney fan. And so lumping these two together, it's kind of important to me because that was kind of like the moment where this, and the score to Illuminations was just amazing. And just that music alone, just listening to that music is so great. And then having that in a Disney park with these amazing fireworks at Epcot, just like mind blowing. So that was definitely an amazing first, was going and experiencing that and kind of having my little geek out about a DCI drum corps playing this music and it being in a Disney park. And also just kind of like realizing that like I think this is something that I want to be into. Because I mean, after that, it was all downhill after that. That's when I was started to really get into it. So yeah, it's kind of a 2-in-1. But the first time that I saw Illuminations and kind of realizing that I'm a Disney nerd.
As you're talking about Illuminations, I'm sitting here going, yes, yes. I remember the cadets doing that show. And I don't know if you recall, but it actually piggybacked off of their appearance in the Super Bowl halftime. Disney did the Super Bowl halftime show that year. And I actually went out and I found the video. Somebody else may have posted it at about the time the Illuminations was ending. And it's got all the big characters that they had in the parade, the Tapestry of Dreams parade, or Tapestry of Nations. I think it was called both. But my favorite part was always the drummers with the great big wheel and the drums spinning in front of them. So yes, that was, one of my firsts that I'll be talking about is my honeymoon. But um, that was one parade that we got to see and going into illuminations. So and that it all comes from the cadets too. That I remember watching that on TV and seeing all these different things, and yeah, like yes, I agreed completely with you there.
Yeah, and it's just kind of combining all these things that I love. Disney, drum corps. If you combine Disney and drum corps, I'm going to be all about it. And so it's just a cool moment, and being able to have those two things coincide in that way was really cool. And the cadets are a really great group. So the way that they pulled off that show was really amazing. So
I'll see if I can come across that video again, and I'll post it in the community group so you guys can see it as well. It was a great video, and if you guys ever got to see the tapestry parade and the illuminations, you'll completely eat it up. It's great. It's great stuff. So my next first, I will go right into my honeymoon with my wife. My first trip with my wife. We got to go down and we stayed for 8 nights. And we had a cast member friend that was helping us out. We got a nice discount at Coronado Springs, and the way that the reservation system works for a cast member, we had to do 2 separate reservations of 4 nights. And they greeted us with, when we got there, they greeted us with a card in our room saying, "Congratulations, have a drink at the pool bar on us." So we went down and we got a glass of champagne, and that was, that kind of kicked off the whole thing for us. But then everywhere we went, there was kind of a little treat here or there as they would see things that as they would see that we're on our honeymoon. And I think that's part of what makes Disney so great and why it's the #1 honeymoon destination, is that they know how to treat their guests and they know how to do things. And that's what brings me back all the time, is that they're, world-class level of service. And I always see people and hear of people complaining and wanting the world handed to them, and that's not what I'm looking for. Those little sprinkles of magic that you don't expect. That's what Disney is for. That's what they do well. And they're not there to make sure that you're getting everything for free. So that aside, our honeymoon was amazing. We had a great time, and it was kind of the beginning of the end, if you want to talk about it that way, because that's when I knew Disney was something that I needed to be a part of.
Yeah, and I think you put it really well. You want to be a part of it. And I think that's kind of why people like us consider Disney home. I hear that a lot from people where they're like, "Oh, I'm home," and I feel that exact same way, where it's like, I want to be here in this, and I want to be a part of what's going on here. And you're completely correct in those the Disney magic and those little things that they can do to really plus your vacation and your time there. And yeah, there's always going to be people who want to take advantage of that and think that it's their vacation, and so they get to do whatever they want, of course. But I mean, if you just kind of understand what's going on and the things that you need to do, it's really not that difficult. Brian has mentioned before that when I went on a vacation with my family at one point, they said it was like walking around with a travel agent or somebody who knew the parks really well. And that's just because I like it so much, and I knew all of the like little ins and outs and where to go and how to plan things. And it's if you just kind of get into things like that and really kind of do your homework before you go, you're not going to be yelling at people at Indiana Jones because you didn't get a seat and your plane is about to board in like 5 hours or something like that. So yeah, it's and that's another thing that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But the fact that there's a lot more planning involved now, Which I mean, for people like Brian and I is fine because we love planning, and um, that's just something we love, and it comes with the love of Disney. So
Well, and
yeah.
I think that's what really helps us stay connected is when we're helping someone plan. We
Mhm.
can live vicariously through their trip.
Yeah.
Um, because we can't go as often as some other people or as often as we know people that are going. So we can
Mhm.
plan the next trip and help other people, and it really helps us stay connected. So,
Yeah. Cool. So my next first and this is actually I have a couple stories about this one. And they're a little bit smaller, but I'm going to say the first time I stayed on property. And this is actually the first time I ever stayed on property was All-Star Resorts, and that's kind of why it has a special place in my heart. I understand it's the Motel 6 of Disney. I understand that it's there's going to be big groups there, and it's going to be loud, and it's just not going to be as eloquent as a bunch of the other resorts. But but I love it. Um it's just something special, and it really makes me feel like I'm at Disney because it was the first place that I stayed, and actually our family ended up staying there several times in a row. Um, and so what I would do is I would get to those hotels. I remember there was one time, this wasn't the first time, but there was one time that I got there and I was so excited to be back at Disney. And we ended up checking in at like 10 or 11. We got to the room, and everybody kind of like put their stuff down and like got into bed, and I walked around the hotel for another 30 minutes just kind of taking everything in. um and I mean I was super psyched to be back at Disney. um and the theming at all the Disney resorts are amazing. But the theming at these all-star resorts or it's larger than life.
mhm,
And I say that literally because everything's huge.
it is.
All of the theming in
Yeah.
there is very big. And so that definitely spoke to me. It was a first, and a lot of my happy memories are of getting to Disney and getting to the hotel that we're staying at, which is probably why um, I enjoy the hotels, and kind of like picking out which hotel I want to go to. Not that I ever really use the hotels all that much because I'm always out experiencing the parks or experiencing something else. Um, but it's just I think it's that arrival, like you're at Disney, like you finally made it, you're home, and your vacation starts now. And so it's just having that excitement. And the first time that I ever went was just so great. Being able to stay in Disney, and it was the same thing where it was just so excited to be there. So that's my third first. um,
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that too, though, is that, and we usually get there early on our first day because I don't want to wait all day to get on a plane. But um, my wife will be the first one to tell you that I don't sit still on a vacation. I need, time is money here. I want to see everything and do everything I can. Case in point, when we were on our last trip, we had gone and done a bunch of things that night, and it was getting to be about 9, 10 o'clock, and my wife and a couple of the kids were starting to fade, and so we went back to the camper, and um, my daughter was still raring to go, and so she's like me. She understands that time is money. We got, let's go do as much as we can. So her and I jump on a bus and go to Disney Springs for the rest of the night. And we just did some shopping. It wasn't a big, to do or anything, but um, yeah, when I am at a place, especially Disney, I'm going to take advantage of everything I can. And that's what's great about the All Stars. When you come back from the park, yeah, you might be tired, but I'm not ready to pack it in at that point. And with it being busy and the pool is still hopping, the party's still going, and you can still enjoy yourself. Um, even on a trip with my wife, we were staying at an All-Star, and we were planned on this is just a bed. Well, we had gone to dinner, we grabbed our dessert to go, and we came back, and it was later at night, so it was kind of quieter, but there were still people milling around and stuff. And we grabbed our dessert and sat near the pool and ate the dessert, and it's like that was just awesome as well because we were able to still enjoy what's going on. And we're at an all-star resort, and maybe it's not as swank as some of those other ones, but it's still Disney. It still feels Disney. And I know my wife has said if we go into some of these, like especially the Grand Floridian, it doesn't feel Disney to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem to suit our style. So whenever people are asking about where to go, I always tell them All Stars are a great place to go. There's no reason not to.
Oh yeah, and I agree with a lot of that, especially kind of like those small moments at Disney. With us being Disney fans, I feel like people who go to Disney are like looking for the castle, and they're looking for Magic Kingdom, they're looking for Tower of Terror. Like those are the things that they gravitate to, and those are their experiences that they remember. For me, and this is kind of probably why I like Disney so much is it's the little things like like literally just walking from my room to the lobby at Art of Animation, like that's forever etched in my mind because of all the amazing things that I walk by, and it's just kind of like an experience in itself right there is just walking to the lobby. And honestly, when I think of Disney, I mean, besides all of the other magical things that you get to do, it's just a full vacation, and all of those little experiences add up to one big experience that's just amazing. And that you just can't beat it. Like Disney's doing it different than a lot of other people. And so I think that's why I gravitate to it. So yeah, that definitely stuck out to me was just those little moments. Even like just sitting around at Disney Springs. I was going to mention, my family does that a lot where we'll just end the night almost every night at Disney Springs. Because it used to like close at like 12 or 1. We're still going to do that at this next trip, but it's going to close at like 10. But I mean, you just want to suck as much Disney out as you can because all of these areas have something great to offer you. Even if it's an all-star resort and you're standing in the middle of a giant tennis court with Donald and his sons playing tennis, like that's the cheapest hotel you can go to, and yet it has these amazing things happening. So,
well, and when I'm there, I want to be surrounded by Disney. I don't necessarily need the stuffiness that you might get at the Grand Floridian or like there's some really cool stuff at the Contemporary that I love looking at, but I don't see myself ever staying there because it's too sterile of a place for me. So just having all of the Disney around you, the Disney music playing, that's part of my vacation. I gotta have it.
Oh yeah.
So my third one would be my first trip with my kids. And I kind of have two first trips because I have a couple of high schoolers and a 7-year-old at this point. And so my first trip with the kids were only with the two older ones. And my wife was pregnant on that trip. But we did a lot of great things. She held a spot for us for the parade. We got to see the electrical parade on that trip, and I have always loved that parade more than the fireworks, more than Wishes. Wishes, I know a lot of people had a lot of sentiment around Wishes. I I'm sorry, I don't remember it that well, and I know I've seen it a few hundred times, I'm sure, but maybe not that many, but I have seen it a few times. And um, my biggest memory is sitting with both of them on my lap and watching the parade go by. And we had someone come over and interact with the kids. We got to see everything up close. We were right up front, sitting on the ground, seeing everything. That's one of the biggest memories I have. And it's from that I'm able to draw more memories as I'm talking about it. Things are popping into my head about that trip. And it was almost 10 years ago now. So, that's one of the big trips that I ever took, was being able to take the kids. So, my all of these memories are family oriented, and that's kind of who I am. But yeah, take your kids for sure at any age. I don't care how old they are. Take them. 6 months, yeah, maybe they won't remember it, but you will. You will, and that's all that matters. It is that you're enjoying yourself, and if you're having fun with your kid and they don't remember it, they'll have pictures. You can tell them stories. It'll be great. So
Yeah, definitely.
and the second trip was with my daughter, was even better. Just to see it through their eyes. The fun thing was that my older daughter was about 6 when we went the first time. And I remember when she finally got to meet the princesses, this look on her face. And it was like she just had this awe across her face. And then when we got to take the younger one, she was about 3.5, and she had that same look on her face, and just priceless stuff for me. So, yeah, great times taking my kids for the first time, and it's been great taking them ever since too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I have some good memories about I don't know if it was the one that I saw, if it was Spectral Magic or if it was Main Street Electrical Parade. I can't remember. But I think it was Spectral Magic. But I remember I had a time where I was actually eating at Pecos Bills, which also Pecos Bills, very good. And we were kind of like out in like they've like this like little porch area that's kind of like down a little bit lower. And I remember we were this is just like a funny memory. We were sitting like on that little porch area up on the like not the railing, but like there's like a little landing there, and we were watching the parade, and it was cool because you were so close to the parade and you were kind of looking up at everything. And I remember a cast member kept coming out and saying, "You guys can't stand there," and so we get off for a little bit, and then we get back on, and we but yeah, and I've never really been a big parade person. I don't know. I feel like I'm always kind of running around while the parades are happening, which is always a decent tip. Like if you're not into parades, go find a ride because people will be getting sucked into these things. But yeah, I've never really been super into those parades. Maybe it's my PTSD from marching drum corps and marching band and everything. But yeah, it's I still have good memories of that, and I mean it's just bringing back just some small silly memory for me too, and that's always great. So I have a couple honorable mentions that I can just quickly get through. Brian, do you have any?
I have a couple, yeah. Couple of quick ones.
So one big one for me is Happily Ever After. The first time I saw Happily Ever After, and this was kind of the same day. I talk about this a lot, where when I realized my brother and sister were into Disney as much as I was. I remember like literally sprinting after my brother because he was so excited to go see Happily Ever After. And it was just kind of like understanding like, hey, he's into this as much as I'm into this, and that's great. So that's a pretty great memory for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say fireworks too. Just I I think my first experience that I really remember with fireworks was the Halloween parade, and this was 2012 when I was there with my kids, and um, the cast member that we knew, she says, "Make sure you stand in the hub." And when it got to the finale, and you got the 180 degrees of fireworks going off, and I had my tiny little phone, which if I was able to find that video, I'm sure it's terrible at this point, but you would hear me say, "Holy cow," because I was not expecting that, and I've never had fireworks surrounding me like that. Um, so yeah, fireworks at Disney are awesome, and yeah, I don't know. That was one of the ones that I was gonna hit.
Yeah, another small one for me, and it's just cool to be able to do this is rope drop. The only place I've ever actually traditionally rope dropped well, it's not even traditionally, but was Animal Kingdom, and we were in line for um, Flight of Passage, and we were like all the way back to Africa. It was a long line. But the cool thing is that as soon as they drop those ropes, people just start walking straight through. So it didn't take too long. I think it maybe took like 30, 45 minutes. So it was still kind of a wait. But it was a lot better than waiting 3 hours at that point, because it had just, I think it was like within the first year or two that it had opened. So yeah, that's always fun. It's cool to be able to say like, hey, I've done this before.
I think you were reading my notes because that's where I was going now. Or I yeah, my wife and I on our single trip we got to go, and we got there, I don't know, 9 days after it had opened, and walking in, like, I have been duped by the Imagineers, specifically on Expedition Everest. But it's always been in isolated experiences like that where you kind of go through the queue line and you kind of start falling for what they're selling with the whole Yeti story. And there's things like that that you come across through the parks, and you just kind of fall for it here and there. But walking into Pandora was the first time that I really felt like I had gone somewhere else. Like I was no longer at Disney. I was no longer on Earth. I had made it to the Pandora Moon, and it was just amazing, just breathtaking to walk into that area and see the mountains floating. To not even riding. I mean, riding the Flight of Passage is one thing, but even just going through the queue line and seeing what they have created, I was blown away. I knew that after we walked out of there, it was kind of, they just did that, and they're working on Star Wars. Being a big Star Wars fan, that was my next thing is, oh my gosh, what are they going to do with Star Wars? So I can't wait for my next first, which will be when I get to walk into the Star Wars land.
Yeah, and that was a very close one. The first time that I went to Batu, and honestly, both nighttime at Batu and nighttime on Pandora, I actually haven't experienced nighttime at Pandora, and so I'm super excited to do that. But those are two experiences that are just amazing. Like just the detail at Batu is amazing. My next quick hitter here is my first Magic Band, and this was actually, I got my first Magic Band at my 24 hours of Disney trip with my brother and my sister when my sister was in Cinderella in Florida. And it was funny because like I didn't need a Magic Band that day. I mean, we had park hoppers, and so it was cool to be able to link them to my Magic Band and everything, and be able to tap it. That was the first time I had ever done anything like that. But just kind of having that keepsake and that wearable that you have for Disney, kind of it really meant a lot to me. I like to think of myself as a trendy person, and just having that thing around your wrist that signified, hey, you're at Disney, is awesome. And I think I wore it for like a month after. And I ended up doing that too. I'm about 2 weeks away from my most current trip, and I'm itching to get that magic band on. And it's gonna happen pretty soon. But that was another special thing for me.
Yeah, they do a great job with those magic bands, and I know I've mentioned it before that I have quite a few, and there's another one out there right now that keeps haunting me, and I think I'm gonna have to buy it. It's a Big Thunder Mountain one. They don't make a lot of merch for Big Thunder Mountain, and
Yeah.
that's my favorite ride. So I think I'm gonna have to buy it. But I always go like, you know, what is it when I get it home? It's nothing. It's a bracelet. You know, it doesn't do anything at that point. Although I do know that there is now a trick on the new iPhones to be able to get it to like answer phone calls or something. You can put it
What?
up to your iPhone. Yeah, like there's certain things you can put your iPhone up to a magic band and have it do things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have an iPhone though, but it was, like I guess there is one thing you can do with a magic band when you're at home. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Did you have any more that you wanted to mention? Otherwise, I
My
have some history I wanted to get into.
Yeah. I'll just hit these last three because I don't really need to talk about them. First turkey leg, of course, memorable experience.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I put Disney social media, and that was kind of like the first time I ever dove into things like the Diz, and Tim Tracker and stuff like that. So that was memorable for me because it was the first time I was really taking in that stuff. And then the last thing I'll talk about, and this might be controversial, so we better not get any hate mail. I had my first Dole Whip in Disneyland. This is in Disneyland. This is where the Dole Whip started, in Disneyland. I didn't.
Don't say it.
I think it's overhyped.
I I I think I know what you might be saying, and I won't say that citrus swirl that I enjoyed on my last trip was probably better. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think, if you like your Dole Whips, you like your Dole Whips. I prefer the citrus swirl better. But to
I-
each their own.
Yeah, honestly, I think I was just, because I hype everything up in my mind at Disney. So I think just the history behind it and what everybody always says about it is just really hyping it up in my mind. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, it's just like a pineapple freezy. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I don't know. You can get them elsewhere now too,
Mhm.
and in different flavors, and but yeah, I don't know. Dole Whip's a Dole Whip.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about quick was Disney has a lot of history for firsts. So we all know Steamboat Willie. I'm sure that was the first appearance of Mickey Mouse with sound. And they were the first studio to use a storyboard to create a film like that. The Silly Symphony Flowers and Trees was the first cartoon to use three-strip Technicolor. Of course, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the first animated feature, if you weren't aware of that. And had the first original motion picture soundtrack. Fantasia was the first to use stereophonic sound and had developed it and called it Fantasound, which is why it didn't play much around the country, because it required changing out the sound system in the theater. So it was almost like it was more of a Broadway touring show, because you had to set up a special system for it. Let's see. Disney was the first to use the mini-series concept for programs like Davy Crockett and the Swamp Fox, which I'm not familiar with the Swamp Fox.
Nope.
And of course, Disneyland was Walt's vision, and it was the first theme park developed for an entire family. Prior to Walt's vision, it was amusement parks were dirty. They weren't necessarily a place that you would take a date. They weren't on the up and up a lot of times. So they introduced audio animatronics in 1963 through the Enchanted Tiki Room. They were the first motion picture company to release films for the educational market. I can keep going. But, I wanted to throw a little history in there. I try to get something in here and there anytime that we talk. So hopefully those are some interesting little tidbits for the people listening, and maybe you learned something today.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, anytime we get to talk about history and I get to learn about Disney history is always great. So yeah, that's all we got for you guys today. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you guys next time on Miles from Main Street. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe. Email us at milesfrommainstreetpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, and visit us on Facebook under Miles from Main Street. We'll be bringing more to you weekly and look forward to talking to you then.
Until next week, remember,
some live close,
but most of us don't.
So let's talk about it.